And he joins me right now. Rudi, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Good morning, Rick.
So I want to start off, I know that you just spoke with President Trump, and I saw you on the phone, but I want to start off with this tweet that President Trump put out because it's gone viral online, and a lot of people are saying that he is conceding, and here's what the president wrote on Twitter. He won because the election was rigged. No vote watchers or observers allowed. Vote tabulated by a radical left privately owned company, Dominion, with a bad reputation and bum equipment that couldn't even qualify for Texas, which I won by a lot, the fake and silent media, and more. Rudi, he says he won. Is the president right now in this tweet conceding this election?
No, far from it. What he's saying is more, I guess, we'd call it sarcastic or a comment on the terrible times in which we live, in which the media has said he won. But by going on to point out that it was illegal, obviously he's contesting it vigorously in the courts. The media has tried to call the election, and they don't have a legal right to call the election. It gets decided by our electors, not by NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, and even Fox. You don't get the right to call it. I don't get the right to call it. So he is contesting it vigorously. As he's gotten more evidence of the rigging that went on, he's really outraged. And I am too. I mean, it's way beyond what people think, including a very, very dangerous foreign company that did the votes in 27 states, a company that's not American, a company that's foreign, a company that has close ties with Venezuela and therefore China, and uses Venezuelan company software that's been used to steal elections in other countries. I mean, I don't think people have any idea of the dimension of the national security problem that Dominion creates. This Dominion company is a radical left company. One of the people there is a big supporter of Antifa and has written horrible things about the president for the last 3 or 4 years. And the software that they use is done by a company called Smartmatic. It's a company that was founded by Chavez. And by Chavez's two allies who still own it. It's been used to cheat in elections in South America. It was banned by the United States about a decade ago. It's come back now as a subcontractor to other companies. It sort of hides in the weeds. But Dominion sends everything to Smartmatic. Can you believe it? Our votes are sent overseas. They're sent to someplace else, some other country. Why do they leave our country?
Yeah.
And this company has tried and true methods for fixing elections by calling a halt to the voting when you're running too far behind. They've done that in prior elections. Now, what happened on election night? He was ahead by 800,000 votes in Pennsylvania. Impossible to catch up, unless you're cheating. And same thing in Michigan, Wisconsin. He was ahead in all those states by numbers that in prior times, and I can show this to you, networks would have called for him. But they didn't call it for him. I mean, we were ahead in those states, and there was so little to like, for example, 800,000 ahead in Pennsylvania, 64% of the vote cast. He was outpolling every projection possible. So right down to the rigged polls before, this is another attempt to try to defeat him by illegal means. It's no different than the impeachment. It's done by largely the same people who are involved in it. One of the chairman of Smartmatic is a close business associate of George Soros. I have to tell you more. Finally, you want to get down to the votes, let's just pick Pennsylvania. We have identified 632,000 illegal votes. 632,000. It's enough to have the president win the state by 300,000, which is actually what he won it by. Right? If you get that Smartmatic machine out and you allow us, I mean, this is unprecedented. They're counting mail-in ballots. And they don't allow any Republican to inspect. That is illegal, unlawful, against the law. I don't know how else to put it. Never happened. I've done many absentee ballot elections. There's a Republican on one side, a Democrat on the other. No. The Republican was outside getting pushed around by goons. When they finally get in, they're 20 feet away and they're told to use binoculars. Binoculars. The only way you can tell whether a mail-in ballot is valid is by examining the outer envelope. The minute you remove the outer envelope, it's gone. You can no longer validate it. And that's why, under the law of every state, if you don't inspect it, the vote is invalid. there are cases, including in Pennsylvania, that have been overturned for just a few ballots that were handled that way. We can prove that 632,000 ballots were handled that way, particularly in Philadelphia. And if you tell me that Philadelphia doesn't cheat in elections, I will tell you you're living on Mars. I mean, and there is a Mars in Pennsylvania, by the way. But I mean, the reality is that I would be surprised if Philadelphia didn't cheat in this election. They've done it in the last 60 years. Now we move on to Detroit. In Detroit, we have evidence that 100,000 ballots were brought in at 4:30 in the morning and counted. And to the extent that our witnesses, and there are 4 of them, saw it, and one of them is an ex-employee of Dominion. According to them, every single ballot was for Biden. And not only that, but whatever ballots they could see, because these weren't Republicans, so they could get closer. Every ballot they could see, it just had Biden's name on it. Nobody else, not even another Democrat. Now, why does that happen? It happens because you know you're behind, Dominion notifies you, you call off the counting, and then you start doing ballots like this. You can't do the down ticket. That's why you have Biden and no down ticket, because they just had enough time to get Biden's name in. We never got a chance to inspect a single one of those. Okay, I got my piece out.
Will you be able to prove this, Rudy? Look, I want to show this graphic of the swing states that were using Dominion and this software, the Smartmatic software. I mean, you just said it all. This is a Smartmatic, a Delaware entity registered in Boca Raton, Florida. Activities in Caracas, Venezuela. The voting machines were used, Dominion voting machines were used in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And I have a graphic showing the states where they stopped counting, which I thought was also strange to stop counting in the middle of election night. One source says that the key point to understand is that the Smartmatic system has a back door that allows it to be, that allows the votes to be mirrored and monitored, allowing an intervening party a real-time understanding of how many votes will be needed to gain an electoral advantage. Are you saying the states that use that software did that?
Well, I know, I can prove that they did it in Michigan. I can prove it with witnesses. We're investigating the rest. In every one of those states, though, we have more than enough illegal ballots already documented to overturn the result in that state. Because not only did they use a Venezuelan company to count our ballots, which almost should be illegal per se. Number 2, they didn't allow Republicans in key places to observe the mail vote. That makes the mail vote completely invalid. Now, they didn't do it everywhere. They did it in big cities where they have corrupt machines that will protect them, meaning in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh, in Detroit. They didn't have to do it in Chicago and New York or Boston. They could have. They have corrupt machines there. They did it absolutely in Phoenix, Arizona. They did it absolutely in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Republicans were shut out from enough of the count so they could accomplish what Smartmatic wanted to do. And that pattern that you have there, we have evidence that that's the same pattern Smartmatic used in other elections in which they were disqualified. In other words, this is their pattern of activity. And yes, there is a backdoor, and we actually have proof of some of the connections to it. Right now, our cases are the most developed in Pennsylvania and in Michigan, but we already have enough affidavits from people who were pushed out of being able to observe. So in each one of the states that he lost narrowly, he won those states probably by 2-3%. I mean, it's a terrible thing that happens.
Before we go, do you have the Dominion hardware in your possession? Do you need to have that hardware in your possession to prove it? Can you prove the case without the hardware or the software?
We have people that I can't really disclose that can describe the hardware in great detail. We have some of the people, former government employees, our government employees and others that were there at the creation of Smartmatic. They can describe it, they can draw it, they can show it. And then we have proof that I can't disclose yet. But I'm confident that...
Yeah.
Good.
Go ahead.
And this has to be examined, Maria, beyond this election, which I believe will get overturned. But beyond this election, this whole thing has to be investigated as a national security matter. And the governors who gave contracts to this company never bothered to do any due diligence. I mean, I can't imagine you would give a contract to a company if you went one step further and found out it's really being run by people that are close to Maduro and Chavez. I can't imagine you would do that unless you're out of your mind.
So you only have a few weeks, Rudy, because they want to certify the state elections early December. Do you believe you will be able to prosecute and be heard within this time frame?
Of course. And I can't imagine how a state legislature can certify based upon ballots where we had no opportunity to inspect, and it was done deliberately. I mean, the fact that it happened in all those states, right, tells you it was a plan. The crooked Democratic leaders in those 10 or 12 places where we were shut out didn't all develop that idea by themselves, right? They didn't have the same dream that night. This is a plan. This is maybe the plan Joe Biden was talking about. He's got the best voter fraud plan in the world. Well, he has a really good one, but lucky we caught it.
Wow. All right, Rudy, we're going to be following your investigation. Thank you very much for